Feeding Frenzy.
Feeding Frenzy 2 is a legendary eat and grow game that you've probably played 2 decades ago. I played this game for the first time on a Windows XP computer. On the PC version, the game only supports the native resolution of 800 by 600, so I decided to use the console version instead that I definitely obtained very legally, which has the resolution of 1280 by 720 and runs on 60 FPS. It's a really simple and easy game, but still surprisingly fun. The game progresses through levels, each associated with a different fish character that you control. While the core gameplay remains consistent, well, actually the same across all fish, the levels will be increasingly varied throughout the course of the game. On this video, I'm going to rate those levels that are associated with the characters for no reason at all. I'm going to use this tier list board for my ratings. The first character that you control is Boris. The Boris segment is basically the tutorial of this game. Move your mouse around to eat some fish, avoid the bigger fish until you're big enough to eat it, and avoid anything that can't be eaten. The real challenge in this game depends on the player's willingness to get a higher score. The more aggressive the player at playing the game, then the frenzy multiplayer will increase as well, which nets you more score. But obviously playing this way is more risky. If you get eaten or die because of the environmental hazard, the game will punish you by reducing the life points that you have by 1 and resetting the frenzy multiplier back to 1. The levels in this segment, as you'd expect, is very easy. The levels will gradually get more crowded, but it is still very manageable. If you're a person with no life like me, you'll probably notice some technical details about how the camera view works in this game. This game utilizes a box view that is obviously hidden from the player's point of view. So whenever Boris and the other fish collide with this hidden box, the camera would move as well. The other lesson, a hidden one, that the game wants to tell to the player is that moving the camera is risky because you obviously don't know what resides in the blind spot. The tutorial did a really good job in showcasing the fundamental of this game, even if the player barely read the level description. It introduced 2 kinds of environment, which is the water level and also a hybrid surface level that lets the fish jump in the air. I'm going to put the Boris segment in the B tier. The second character that you put your mind control at is Layla. This segment introduced a new ability, which is the sucking ability. Another major thing that was introduced in this segment is the barracuda. You have to bite its tail 4 times to eat it. It's actually pretty hard to time it when, you should strike its tail. If you miss it after the first bite, you'll probably have a hard time afterwards because the preceding turn is pretty unpredictable. You don't really need to eat the barracuda, but obviously my goblin brain forced me to do it anyway. Other minor things that are not as interesting are some new bubbles like this mushroom power up to shrink the size of any fish that's bigger than you, the speed boost bubbles that momentarily increase your speed. I can't tell whether this is a buff or a debuff because most of the time you want to be very careful of your movements. The golden herring also started to spawn. Eating this will instantly grow the fish. And the last thing that started to spawn are these mines. Technically the Layla segment still counts as a tutorial, but it is still pretty underwhelming. There are these new mini games that showcase the new power-ups, but these levels are pretty much the same as the Boris levels. The barracuda introduction is interesting, but that's it. The levels do get even more crowded, but the difficulty differences is not that noticeable enough to be challenging. I'm going to put the Layla segment in the C tier. Eddie is a returning character from the first Feeding Frenzy. When I played the game for the first time, I was kind of disappointed that Eddie, a lanternfish, doesn't like anything. The one memorable thing that I can recall though about Eddie in the first game is that for whatever reason, a level that involved Eddie just turns out to be extremely difficult and is actually the hardest level in the first game. Eddie was basically placed in the middle of a crossroad, so the player had to cross a road with cars moving at full speed whenever they try to eat something. That level also spawned some poison herrings that jeopardize your movements. Very cool, Miyazaki. Anyway, in Feeding Frenzy 2, the lantern part of Eddie's body is actually utilized on some levels. The first level introduces the jellyfish. Collide with one of these and you can't move momentarily. Placing the jellyfish and the clams in the same level is a pretty smart design. On the previous levels, there are no punishments to camp near the clams to eat its pearls or bubble. Some small fish would occasionally spawn near it so you can still progress the game while also waiting for the clams to open up. But now, you will be punished if you try to do this. Not only that, you can no longer be too careless when you reach your full size because of them. Midway through the segment, you'll be introduced to this dark level, so you have to eat the glowing plankton and some light bubbles to illuminate the area. The dark levels also becomes increasingly difficult once they spawn some jellyfish in the area as well. I'm going to put the Eddie segment in the B tier. Peter here represents the redemption of the blue pompano species. Their species are enemies in the previous segment. Now it is their chance to redeem themselves. This segment introduced another annoying obstacle that will be present till the end of the game, the cuttlefish. If you approach them from the front, they'll shoot their ink and propel themselves backwards. I love this segment a lot. The enemies are actually a threat now. Usually they behave in a simple movement where they go from one screen to the other, but now you'll probably start to notice that they just linger on the screen a lot longer and follow you around. The barracudas also appears more often in this segment. They're only a threat, of course, if you decide to follow your intrusive thoughts to bite its tail. High risk, high reward. And there's also a really fun barracuda minigame that also introduced the shieldfish power-up. This segment is a warm-up before the levels eventually becomes more difficult. If a level spawns some mines, then the jellyfish won't spawn in. If a level spawns some poison herrings, then the cuttlefish will accompany them. And it is also not that crowded. I'm going to put the Peter segment in the S tier. Now that the blue pompano species have redeemed themselves via Peter, it is time for the humphead race to redeem themselves. This species has been a menace ever since we controlled Boris at the start of the game. The hairy segments start in the same location as Layla, but this time with an added surface area to jump to. The first level of this segment encourages and rewards you if you decided to eat the insects on the air instead of the small fish in the water. The insects spawn in groups while the fish below only spawn individually. The enemy's AI of lingering around the screen for a while and also follow you around is also more obvious, as you can tell from this footage of me jumping around on the air. They also added the pelican to spice things up. The pelican should have been added from the very start of the Boris segment, to be honest. The gameplay loop is now about balancing your position in the water and on the surface. You should not linger around too long on the surface or else the enemies will camp on the surface, and you should not linger around too long at the bottom because they'll overwhelm you there as well. They even added this jellyfish to make the hidden message more obvious. This segment also introduced the final annoying obstacle that will be present until the end game, the pufferfish. In my opinion, they're the worst out of the trifecta of this game. Here's a footage of the damn fish when it bounced me to the mouth of a barracuda.
Double frenzy.
And here's another footage of it that made me fail a minigame. Also, one more thing to add before I move on to the next character. The last level in the Harry segment is way more difficult in the console version of the game. There are way more cuttlefish that spawn in the console version compared to the PC version. And not only that, one of the power bubbles in the console version, the stun bubble, literally doesn't work. The bug accidentally made this level more interesting. Harry segment is pretty bland, at least in the PC version. I feel that this segment is the moment where the console version start to deviate from the PC version in terms of difficulty progression. The obvious thing that the console version that makes it different from the PC version is that most of the levels are way more crowded. It is still pretty forgiving though. There are still no levels that, put the damn trio at the same time yet. Harry segment is an A tier. The next character that you control is Goliath the Great White Shark. I felt that this segment is very underwhelming. I even felt the same when I was still a kid. This segment consists of two areas, this huge ocean level and the dark area that got introduced in the Edie segment. The great white shark is the only species on this game that is actually capable of jumping to the air, yet they didn't even bother to put the hybrid surface level in this segment. The entire segment doesn't feel like a huge leap from the previous segment in terms of the gameplay. Well, the difficulty I mean. Playing as Goliath does put you in a somewhat disadvantage compared to the other characters because Goliath has a longer width, meaning a larger hitbox, but difficulty wise, it is still comparable to the Harry segment when it shouldn't be. This is supposed to be the start when the game stopped being forgiving towards the player. The last level of the segment is a boss fight, the intruder. Bait the intruder to the bomb and eat the mushroom bubble to damage it. Simple. This segment is an easy C tier. This is the start of the endgame. We previously played as the most disappointing great white shark in history, and so the role reverted back to the previous characters. Each post segment consists of two levels and a single boss fight. The post Harry segment difficulty is what the Goliath segment is supposed to reach at that point. The whole place is crowded, barracuda kept spawning in, cuttlefish inks are everywhere which turns everything into a mess. And there's even a level before the boss fight where the only fish that you can eat is the cuttlefish. This level is an ink hell. The intruder fight in this segment also put a little twist. Instead of following you immediately, it will try to suck you first instead. But still, this segment is actually kind of underwhelming compared to the other post-game segments. I'm going to put this in the B tier. Now we're back to Peter, back to the hybrid surface level. This is the moment that the game truly tests your skill on how well you can manage your position in the water and on the surface. Both the small fish and the insects are not in groups, but you will be more rewarded if you target the insects instead. This is because if you choose to target the small fish, you will be overwhelmed by the poison herrings and the other bigger fish. But just like previously, if you linger too long on the surface, the bigger fish will start to camp there. On the last level before the boss level, the poison herrings are replaced by the pufferfish and the insects are now in groups. You might think that the insects are more rewarding at the start now, but this is actually a trap because I noticed that the leopard shark actually spawn near the surface more often on this level. When you finally reach the boss level, you'll notice that the bombs are near the surface, so you bait the intruder, jump over the bombs, and hope that the pelican isn't there to eat you. This is also one of your chance to eat the pelican because the mushroom bubbles also works on it. This is one of the good post-game segments, but not the best one, so I'm going to put this in the A tier. After those very decent post-game segments, it is time for the most disappointing post-game segment. The levels themselves are actually pretty decent, and oh no, the blue pampanos are enemies again. After all of the effort that Peter did to redeem the blue pampano species, they decide to betray us near the end. This is so sad. To cheer Peter up, I'm going to bump the post-Peter segment to the S tier. The dark levels are always good, they even spawn some barracudas. I'm not good enough at the game to eat a barracuda on the dark level, maybe you can pull it off. My actual disappointment is the lack of boss fight on this segment. They used this boring minigame instead. I thought they updated the intruder fight in the console version, but they didn't. I'm going to put this in the B tier. Now, we're back to Layla. This segment used the same areas and enemies that Goliath resides in, but this is much harder and more interesting than the Goliath segment. Layla can only grow to eat the leopard shark, so the orcas are the biggest threat within this segment. This is because the orcas always spawn in larger quantities. This is not really a huge deal when you play as Goliath because Goliath will be big enough to eat them, but not for Layla. The orcas will always be a threat to the very end. The last level before the intruder is the second hardest level in the entire game. The only options that Layla can eat very early on in the level are the cuttlefish and the pufferfish. The poison herrings are also there. There's actually a major difference in the console version of this level because the orcas doesn't spawn in the console version. I don't know if this is intentional or a bug, but I think it's more likely to be a bug. The Post-Layla segment is an A tier. Finally, we're back to Boris. Literally the name of the level, by the way. The developer decided to be funny and only put insects as the earliest thing that you can eat. This level looks pretty calm though, right? Well, this is the calm before the storm. The next level is the Eddie level from Feeding Frenzy 1, but much worse. Boris is placed in the middle of a road with some high-speed cars, but the level is much smaller compared to its Feeding Frenzy 1 counterpart. Even if Boris reaches its full size, it will still compete with the other bigger fish, and to top it all off, look who decided to be a traitor in the end.
Where is the betrayer?
This is probably the hardest level to keep that frenzy meter to its full max multiplier, and I think it is just impossible to eat the barracuda. Well, then again, it's probably just skill issue on my part. The last intruder fight are filled with cuttlefish and poison herrings to annoy you. They should have added the pufferfish to complete the trio, but because you know why not, it's the last level anyway. Alongside the post-Peter segment, I'm going to put this in the S tier, and that concludes my tier list of the segments of this game. Most people, whenever they found videos like this, would usually skip to the very end of the video or use the timestamp to the final chapter of the video to see the end result of the tier list. Hopefully those people that do exactly that can understand this tier list very well. This game alongside many other PopCap games are one of my favorites. The only title that somewhat survive even to this day is Plants vs Zombies, though I must say that EA did a really great job in trying to kill it. I hope you enjoyed this video of me being a pretentious weirdo over analyzing a fish game. That's it for me, thank you for watching.